Coming up on The Watchman, did Iran just abandon Hamas to its fate? And what has Israel uncovered at Gaza's notorious Shifa hospital? Israel Defense Forces Reserve Major Elliot Chodoff is here to break it down. Plus, the mother of an Israeli hostage being held by Hamas shares her powerful story. And the one and only Danny the Digger Herman is here with an update as well. All that and much more next. And welcome to The Watchman. We have a jam-packed show. Some very good friends of this show, Danny the Digger Herman and Reserve Major Elliot Chodoff, are here. They'll be joining us in a few short minutes. But up first, we've got some breaking news to report, folks. A major Hamas terror attack against Jerusalem was thwarted today. It all happened at the Tunnels Crossing, a crossing I've been through many times in my visits to Israel, leading from the West Bank, which we know as Judea and Samaria, the biblical heartland here on The Watchman, leading from there into the city of Jerusalem, the ancient and ancestral capital of the nation of Israel. Now, these three Hamas terrorists, and Hamas claimed responsibility for this attack. They attacked a contingent of Israeli soldiers at this checkpoint. At least 6 IDF soldiers were wounded and 1 was killed in this Hamas terror attack. And afterwards, in their cars, the IDF found a great amount of ammo and even axes. Again, this was the thwarting of a major Hamas terror attack. It's bad enough what happened at the checkpoint, obviously, but this terror unit, this terror cell of Hamas, would have carried out even greater carnage if it was not stopped at that checkpoint and if it entered Jerusalem. So breaking news there. Keep those Israeli soldiers who were wounded in your prayers, no doubt. In the meantime, a quick update on a topic we've been discussing a bunch here recently on The Watchman, Al-Shifa Hospital. Basically, a Hamas hospital. This is the largest hospital in Gaza City, and yet Hamas has set up its command and control center underneath a hospital. Now, Israeli Defense Forces spokesman Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus, a good friend of ours, who you have seen here on the show, he took us on a tour of Al-Shifa Hospital yesterday, and here is what he found and the IDF found inside. Really no surprise, but a smoking gun, quite literally, showing that, yes, Hamas was using Al-Shifa Hospital as a center and other hospitals across the Gaza Strip. Take a look.
We're now, as you can see, in an MRI room. I don't know when this was used the last time. But it is definitely an MRI machine. And if you follow me behind the MRI machine, I'll show you what our troops exposed just minutes ago. In military terms, this is a grab bag, grab and go of a Hamas combatant. And if you zoom in and we get some light over here, what you will be able to see is military equipment. There is an AK-47, there are cartridges, ammo, there are grenades in here, of course uniform, and all of this was hidden very conveniently, secretly behind the MRI machine. If you can see, follow me, up here on top of a spare part of the MRI department, we found another grab bag. It's empty because we emptied it and cleared it so that we could use and see it. So this is where we found it, and here are the contents of the bag. The contents of the bag are full military kit for 1 Hamas terrorist. A live grenade, ammunition, fighting vest with insignia, boots, and of course uniforms, and last but not least, standard AK-47.
Folks, 2 things here. Number one, Al-Shifa Hospital also has a massive tunnel complex beneath it where, again, as I mentioned earlier, Hamas's command and control center, according to the Israel Defense Forces, has been located. And the big question is, as the IDF has carried out, you see the maps there on your screen of Al-Shifa Hospital, as the IDF has carried out these targeted raids within the hospital, taking great pains to avoid any civilian casualties, doctors, nurses, patients. The big question is, do they make a foray into those tunnels beneath the hospital? Stay tuned. This is an ongoing operation. The second big question is, what does the Iranian regime think of all of this? Remember, this is Hamas's patron. Some 90% of Hamas's overall funding comes from the Iranian regime. And I argue that the massacre of October 7th would not have happened without the active support of the Iranian regime, training, funding, ideological support of the Hamas terror army. And it's no coincidence, folks, that in the run-up to October 7th, some 500 Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorists were in Iran for training. I'm sure it was all just a coincidence or not. But now, the Iranian regime suddenly, now that Israel is about to crush Hamas decisively, a stunning and very impressive military display by the Israel Defense Forces, now, all of a sudden, the Iranian supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, seems to be changing his tune. He reportedly met with Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh and told him, look, essentially, you are on your own. Iran, according to the supreme leader, is not going to intervene and bail Hamas out of this war, which means, I presume, that Hezbollah won't as well. Now, we'll see if that is indeed the case going forward. But in the meantime, Iran seems to be saying to Hamas, look, you're on your own. And that means, folks, that Israel may be even closer to, again, crushing this demonic death cult known as Hamas once and for all. Well, joining us now from Israel to break all of this down is our good friend, Israel Defense Forces Reserve Major Elliot Chodoff, joining us from Israel. Elliot, always great to see you, my friend. Usually we're on the ground together in Israel. I wish this was under better circumstances, but for years, you have been informing our Watchman audience about what is coming, about this Iranian ring of fire that surrounds Israel. I want to talk about the situation to the north with you, but up first, what can you tell us about the operation in Gaza? I know you need to be careful as a reserve major in the IDF with what you can share, but how successful has this Israeli operation in Gaza been thus far, and what can we expect next?
Okay, Eric, first of all, great to be back with you. Great to see you again. I got home for a weekend leave in reserve duty. I was in uniform up until a few hours ago. I'm serving in the South. Let's just say that the operation in Gaza is proceeding, I would say, beyond IDF expectations. We knew we were going to succeed there, but the success rate is phenomenal. The combined arms cooperation work is outstanding, and you know me, I'm not an easy grader. The infantry, armor, engineer corps cooperation on the ground mixed with the artillery and air support is proving itself. And for this, I don't think you need a military expert. Of course, we suffered casualties, and casualties are tragic. But if you look at the scale of this operation as an urban operation, the amount of damage that we've done to Hamas and continue to do to Hamas with relatively low losses under the circumstances, you can see that it's been a tremendous success up until now.
Yeah, and now I guess the next stage, Elliot, as the IDF carries out these operations in and around Gaza City, it seems that Hamas terrorists perhaps are fleeing south. Does the IDF move south next, perhaps? I think of Khan Yunis, and we've even heard reports that some of the hostages are being held there. Does that look like perhaps the next step for the IDF to expand the operation to the south, to tighten the squeeze on Hamas even more?
Right. There's no question. It's been stated publicly, the South is the next step, but first and foremost, the center, the infrastructure center of Hamas is in the northern part of the Strip in Gaza City, in its neighborhoods of Jabalia and Shati and the others, some of which we've gotten into already, under the hospitals, and not coincidentally, into and under the hospitals. By the way, Al Shifa Hospital was built by Israel,
Wow.
which also means that we have the blueprints. Don't tell anybody. But they're digging into it and under it is not news to us. I think you and I have talked about this over the years. We knew this a decade ago at least. But first and foremost, we need to clean out and clear out the heavy Hamas terror infrastructure in the north of the Strip before we move to the south. And that's why the north was chosen as the first objective. But there's no question that in order to really do the job properly, you have to go to the south. And apparently many of the hostages are there as well.
Elliot, it's stunning that Al Shifa Hospital, this Hamas command and control center, was built by Israel prior to 2005 when Israel pulled out of Gaza with that so-called disengagement. Do you believe that Israel is on the road to accomplishing its goal of crushing Hamas decisively once and for all? That's the first part. And secondly, an area you and I have traveled to many times, Israel's border with Lebanon. It seems to me unsustainable that the situation would continue the way it's been, with Hezbollah perched on Israel's northern doorstep. What are your thoughts on that moving forward?
Okay, so first of all, our declared objective in Gaza is to destroy Hamas. The only thing that could prevent it, and could prevent it, I don't know that it will, is a sudden turn by the United States and the Europeans, who so far have been supportive at various levels of support, but generally supportive, but a turn on their parts to turn against Israel. And now everybody knows all these calls for immediate ceasefire are basically to let Hamas off the hook. And as long as that can be stood up against by governments, and of course by Israel, then we'll continue, and ultimately we will crush them. Let me add to that the declarations for a ceasefire are nice in the sense of that they don't really mean anything. I always say that statements, particularly by the United States administration, I don't mean just this one, statements about Israeli actions really only matter when they end with the words "or else." And what would America threaten Israel with if it doesn't adhere to an American dictate, let's say, to stop the offensive against Hamas? And that, of course, puts Israel on the horns of a very serious dilemma. In the north, I think that what we're seeing is a very interesting and complex situation. I believe that Iran and Hezbollah, actually, let me go back a step and affirm what you said. Iran is behind all of this. They're behind it strategically. They are the funder, trainer, organizer, planner behind Hamas's operations. I believe that they thought that a Hamas operation on this scale, and let's keep in mind that the original plan was far grander than what actually happened. For all of the failure of the morning of the 7th, and there's no question, the Israeli military failed on the morning of the 7th. There's no other way to term it. However, it responded very quickly. In other words, the military, after that initial failure, came back hard, and within 24 hours or so, had essentially defeated the entire Hamas attack. So, not to take anything away from the failure, the immediate bounce back, the retaking of everything, killing virtually every terrorist who was in Israel from Saturday morning until midday Sunday, late afternoon Sunday, showed the resiliency of the IDF and its ability to bounce back from its initial failure. And again, I want to state clearly that it has nothing to do with covering up the initial failure. It was catastrophic.
Yeah. Elliot, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. The Iranians and Hezbollah believed that this attack would tear Israel apart. I remind you, Israel's been undergoing a severe internal conflict over judicial reform and protests. I don't want to go into all the details of it, but for months. And they believed that this attack would break Israel apart. Israel would be unable to respond. There was already talk about the reserve refusal to serve and so on and so forth. In fact, within hours, the protest movement called off the protests, said this is all over until the war is over. And within a day or so, we began calling up reserves. And within a few days, 300,000 to 400,000 reservists were called up. This is the largest reserve call up in Israel's history and the fastest. Many to the south, but also many to the north. Now, that sets the stage. Iran and Hezbollah look at this and say, oops, this isn't what we planned for. We planned for a weakened Israel, divided Israel, an impotent Israel that can't respond, and now we're suddenly facing an Israel ready, fit, and armed to the teeth facing us. And Iran, and then we go on the offensive against the Hamas in Gaza and begin crushing them. Is Iran and Hezbollah are looking at that and saying, you know what? No, we'd rather not have that happen to us. And that's the stage for them backing down and saying, you know what, you guys, you're on your own.
Yeah. And I wonder if Israel eventually, Elliot, as we wrap here, if Israel, look, some 360,000 reserves called up, including yourself, Israel united on war footing, as you said, and Hezbollah still there. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the north in the near future. Hey, our dear friend, Israel Defense Forces Reserve Major, military strategic analyst, unlike any other, our good friend Elliot Chodoff. Elliot, stay safe. We're praying for you and your family. We'll see you again soon, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us. God bless.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Elliot. Elliot Chodoff, a dear friend, folks. We have traveled the road together from the north of Israel to the south and beyond. He is a brilliant strategic thinker. And, hey, if he's on the front lines of Gaza, the people of Israel can rest easier at night. Trust me. We talked about Al-Shifa Hospital a few minutes ago, and one of the important facts that came out of that, out of the IDF raid of that Hamas terror nest, was that there was proof for the hostages and their possible whereabouts found at Al-Shifa Hospital. Yes, folks, a quick reminder, there are still some 240 hostages in the clutches of Hamas being held somewhere in Gaza. One of them is Hirsch Goldberg. His mother, Rachel, joined us recently to share her testimonial, her story of how she's getting through as best she can with God's help, the knowledge that her son, her beloved 23-year-old son, is in the clutches right now of Hamas in Gaza. Take a look.
Hirsch and one of his best friends, whose name is Honor Shapira, went to this music festival together with a bunch of like-minded young people. It's called the Festival of Unity and Light. It's a very peaceful kind of crowd of, hippie, fun-loving young people. And in the morning on Saturday, October 7th, they started to come under attack by Hamas. It was around 7:30 maybe in the morning that Hamas came with machine guns and was just mowing down these young people who were in a very large field. They had all camped out there the night before. Hirsch and Honor and two other friends managed to run away to a car and try to escape in this car going north. But Hamas had barricaded the road and was shooting at everyone who was coming toward them with massive machine gun fire and killing everyone in the cars that were coming toward them. So this row of many, many cars of young people stopped in the middle of the road. They threw open the doors and they all went running for cover. There are roadside bomb shelters all along that road in the south. So 29 of them smushed into one of these small cement windowless bomb shelters. There's no door of the bomb shelter. There's a doorway, but there's no door. And they were mushed in there. Hamas descended upon each bomb shelter systematically. When they got to Hirsch and Honor's bomb shelter, they started to throw in hand grenades, which we know from eyewitnesses, Honor was standing in the doorway and managed to actually pick up many of these hand grenades and throw them back out before they detonated. Unfortunately, 3 of them did get by and detonate inside the bomb shelter, which obviously caused a lot of death and carnage. Then Hamas entered. They fired an RPG into this tiny little windowless room of 29 people, and then they sprayed the room with machine gun fire. They gave a couple minutes for the dust to settle, and then they came in, and most of the young people in that room were dead. Many were dying terrible, painful deaths, and a few lucky ones were trapped under the bodies. It's from the ones who were trapped under the bodies alive who watched what happened and told us. There were 3 young men slumped against the wall, all injured. Hirsch was one of them. Hamas, by gunpoint, said to them, "Get up and come outside." And when Hirsch stood up, that's when they all told us that his left arm from the elbow down had been blown off. He had, in those couple minutes of down, when the dust was settling, he had tied on a tourniquet of some sort or a bandage. All 3 young men walked outside by gunpoint. They were put on a Hamas pickup truck and they were taken to Gaza. And Hirsch's last phone signal was from Gaza at 10:25 in the morning, Saturday morning. The day-to-day is a lot of it indescribable. We are faithful people. We are God-fearing people. I pray every morning, which I've been doing for years and years. I say Psalms throughout the day, which gives me tremendous comfort. The book of Psalms, as you know, you choose what works for you. There are Psalms for when you're really happy. There are Psalms when you're really hopeful. And there are songs when you are in agony and despair. And it's very validating to read those words and to feel the comfort from those Psalms. So I think the combination of those things have been somewhat helpful in us coping through this very slow motion torture we're going through.
Folks, God bless Rachel Goldberg, her family, and we are praying incessantly. We're praying without ceasing here at the Watchman that her son Hirsch and all the hostages come home. I interviewed last week here on TBN a number of the hostages' families. It was the most difficult interviews that I've ever done, but I believe the most important as well. And we continue to pray. You've heard me mention this before. I will mention it again right now. We continue to pray for a miraculous hostage rescue. I have cited Genesis 14, where Abraham and 318 men saved his nephew Lot, who was held captive by pagan Canaanite kings. And I've also cited 1 Samuel, where David and his mighty men saved their wives and children after they were taken hostage by the Amalekites. God's arm is not too short. We are praying for yet again another miraculous hostage rescue in the land of Israel. Well, our good friend Danny the Digger Herman, top Israeli archaeologist and tour guide. I've been texting with him, folks, since October 7th over the weeks. A lot of our viewers have been asking, how is Danny doing? He is one of our favorites. He is a frequent Watchman contributor, and he joins us right now from his home in Modin, Israel. Danny, it is great to see you. It has been too long, my friend. First off, how are you doing? How is your family doing? Our Watchman audience has been asking about you, my friend.
Well, the answer these days to how are you doing is like everyone else. No one is answering, "Oh, I'm good, I'm fine," because no one is fine. This set of events is just devastating. There's not a single Israeli who's not affected by it. So I'm like everyone else. I'm coping. I'm doing my best to keep a routine. Luckily, none of my immediate family is related to any of the casualties or hostages. There have been 12 funerals in my city so far. The 13th today. Okay, I don't know them personally. They're not my age group, but it's just devastating to go outside and just stand with a flag each time a funeral passes next to my house, in my neighborhood. This is my new life. Until October 7th, I was a tour guide. I was actually up to October 6, guiding a family, a group of 6 Americans from Texas. In the evening, I went to have dinner with my relative who came to Israel. And from the morning of the 7th, I've been trying to get flights for them to get them out of the country. Yes, this is Israel as of now.
Danny, what's your sense of being on the ground? And by the way, you live in Modin, the hometown of the Maccabees, those great Israeli warriors, and Hanukkah's coming up soon. Danny, what's your sense right now on the ground? Just watching from afar, it feels like the people of Israel have never been more united than they are now. Do you get that sense being in Israel?
Yes, you know very well how politically we were torn, even domestically. You know, Maron, my daughter's boyfriend, who's, by the way, have been drafted, and he's a very right-wing political activist. He works in the parliament, and we would have Friday dinner, you know, debates. That's all gone. We're all on the same page now. We're all very, very united, and we're all eager just to win, to be victorious, and both to annihilate Hamas and to release the hostages, which seems to contradict one another. But we will prevail. Israel has been through worse. Not me personally. I was a child in the Yom Kippur War, 1973. I've never witnessed anything close to this, but we will prevail. We are already prevailing. I mean, there are Israeli soldiers in Shifa, okay? Yeah. They are comedians entertaining the soldiers in the northern part of Gaza, things that sounded like science fiction just a month ago. So we will get rid of Hamas. Will we release the hostages, all of the hostages? No one can answer that. Yeah. But this is the state of affairs.
When the dust settles from all of this, eventually, what does Israel look like? I guess we're looking at a much different Israel, Danny. It seems like the world's one and only Jewish state is really never going to be the same after October 7th.
Well, the Israelis are not going to be the same. We lost our hope for peace, I think. If there was anyone that was more left-oriented to reconciliation with the Arabs, with the Palestinians, it's all gone. There's a total lack of trust of any of the Palestinian leadership. Forget the Hamas, but also the Palestinian Authority. And we must defend ourselves before anything else. The borders are not going to change. I think we're still going to have certain Palestinian-controlled areas. Gaza will have some sort of a security zone. We will have to push Hezbollah. This war will not be over before the Hezbollah is pushed away, if not, terminated, and pushed away beyond the Litani, and having a security buffer zone, as we used to have till the year 2000. We made a deadly experiment in retrospect of giving that buffer zone and giving the Palestinians of Gaza an ability to come and work here. In retrospect, they were just gathering data for this deadly attack. The borders are not going to change. The people are. I do believe and expect, actually, once this war is over, a lot of people will want to come here again. I hear it. I see it on my social media, how much support I'm getting from especially Americans, not necessarily Jews, a lot of your audience. And they're all eager to come here and show solidarity, and things will be bright again. But right now, these are not the best times for our state.
Danny, thank you so much for that update. It's good, first of all, for all of our viewers to see you are safe and sound, you're doing well, and you are a warrior for Israel in the digital realm. I encourage everyone to follow you on Instagram and Facebook and everywhere where you are posting on a daily basis, getting the truth out in these dark, dark times. But Danny, you are a light, my friend, in the darkness. I cannot wait to be on the ground with you again very soon in the land, after this great victory that the IDF will attain. God bless you and the family, Danny. I'll see you again soon, my friend. Hang in there.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Danny. Hey, folks, if you watch this show on a regular basis, you know that no one is better than Danny in giving you literally a tour through the history of Israel, biblical archaeology, one of our favorite topics here on The Watchman. and then some. So continue to keep Danny and his family in your prayers as well. And we're mandated as believers to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Do not only that, pray for those beleaguered communities in southern Israel, northern Israel, and beyond. Hey, God is on the throne. He is in control, and Israel will prevail. It won't be easy, but Israel will prevail. Thanks so much for joining us here on The Watchman this time. Until next time, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.